Hello everyone. This video presents a notable event that happened on each day from the past week in history. On June 8, 1949, the novel 1984 by English writer Eric Blair, writing as George Orwell, was published. This story of a dystopian future where an intrusive government controls all, sees all, and wages never-ending war was modeled after the regimes of the USSR under Stalin and Germany under Adolf Hitler. The novel terrified a generation about the dangers of big government and what the future might hold. Other novels that have shaped public opinion and the trajectory of history include Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, an 1852 story of life in slavery in the antebellum U.S. that molded a negative public perception of slavery, and Atlas Shrugged, the 1957 novel by Ayn Rand that became a rallying work for capitalists. Finally, The Turner Diaries, a 1978 work by Andrew MacDonald, has become the right-wing militia movement guidebook. What novel would you add to this list? Please let us know in the comments for this video. On June 9, 1928, Australian Charles E.K. Smith completed the first flight across the Pacific Ocean, an enormous aviation first that is often overlooked. Smith went to the USA starting with buying his airplane there from a famed polar explorer. The monoplane, named the Southern Cross, boasted 3 engines, was capable of carrying up to 10 people for 750 miles at a top speed of 130 miles per hour, and was modified to carry extra fuel to make the flight from California to Hawaii and beyond. The next stop was Fiji, after a 34.5-hour flight before making the final flight to Australia, completing the 7,316-mile journey. 3 other men accompanied Smith on his epic flight, in which they also set a distance record for radio transmission. Flying the Lady Southern Cross, Smith disappeared over the Indian Ocean in 1935 while trying to set a speed record flying between Australia and England. On June 10, 1947, the Swedish industrial powerhouse Saab produced their first automobile, becoming just another of the many failed automobile companies by 2016. While the Saab-branded cars were kind of quirky, they did have a decent reputation for quality and safety, not unlike their Swedish fellow carmaker Volvo. While the Saab name may no longer grace vehicles on the highway, the Saab name still soars high above, attached to both military and civilian airplanes. In fact, Saab has opened U.S. airplane manufacturing facilities, especially to partner with Boeing in the production of an advanced jet trainer for the U.S. Air Force, the T-7 Red Hawk, as well as other aerospace electronic systems. As a question for my students and subscribers, have you ever owned or driven a Saab? Please let us know in the comment section below this video. Your viewership is much appreciated. On June 11, 1963, Alabama Governor George Wallace tried to block 2 black students from entering the University of Alabama. That same day, President John F. Kennedy made a speech telling the country about his plan for a civil rights law that would end segregation and provide equal access to all aspects of American life for people of any race. The strained racial atmosphere of 1963 meant that many Americans were opposed to racial equality under the law. Kennedy's endorsement of a civil rights reform may have been a contributing factor in his murder later that same year. Speculation about why JFK was killed has run rampant. We ask you, why do you believe JFK was murdered? Here are some popular alleged plotters. Oswald acted alone, the official version, Cuban communists, Cuban anti-communists, the CIA or the FBI, the Mafia, Vice President Johnson, or the Soviets. Who do you believe was responsible? On June 12, 2009, incumbent Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was announced the winner of the national election over 3 challengers, a result hotly disputed by millions of Iranians and protested in many countries around the world. In the U.S., the presidential elections of 2000 and 2020 have been hotly debated, but apparently other countries experience the same or similar lack of confidence in election integrity. In 2024, the Russian presidential election was a romp for incumbent Vladimir Putin, especially after stifling any opposition. It seems few people in or out of Russia take their elections seriously. The 2022 presidential election in Brazil is another example of the loser crying foul and contesting the election. When or will people ever regain trust in presidential elections? As a question for my students and subscribers, who will win the next U.S. presidential election? Please let us know in the comments section for this video. On June 13, 2018, Volkswagen was fined a whopping billion euros by the EU in conjunction with an emissions tricking scheme hatched by VW to beat clean air requirements in Europe and the US. The VW scandal, using special computer programs to falsify emissions testing of their turbocharged direct injection engines, is not unique among car companies' efforts to bamboozle governments and consumers. Further investigations showed that other car companies had also cheated on diesel engine emissions. Another extreme scandal, this time of a deadly nature, concerned Ford allegedly knowing about the risk of fire when their Pinto minicar was rear-ended and not adequately mitigating the danger. Car makers have also been accused of lying about safety tests and gas mileage performance, among other ways of fooling authorities and consumers. What other industries lie about their products? Please let us know in the comments. On June 14, 1962, the European Space Research Organization was founded in Paris, later to become the European Space Agency, now with 22 member countries. While most focus is on the US and the Soviet-Russian space programs vis-à-vis the space race, other nations have joined in the endeavor to explore and exploit space. As of April of 2023, only Russia, the US, and China have launched humans into space via their own vehicles, while the American private firm SpaceX has also joined the Human Space Travel Club. Along with Russia, the US, and China, countries that have launched objects into space include the UK, Japan, France, India, Germany, Canada, and believe it or not, Luxembourg. Several other countries have space programs and are developing their capabilities. Should the US continue with plans to go back to the moon and eventually to land on Mars? As a question for my students and subscribers, which event from this past week in history would you most like to learn more about? Please let me know in the comment section below this video. If you liked this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated. For image, audio, and other credits and attributions for components of the individual videos in this compilation, please see the descriptions of their respective videos, which are linked to in this video's description.